This video will cover anaplastic large cell lymphoma. The anchor for this one will be what's in front and center for us. This is an ant farm in a green plastic Tupperware of some sort. If you're going to have an ant farm, please don't use a Tupperware. But here they did. Let's break it down. The anaplastic portion is represented by the ants, since ants sounds like the beginning part of anaplastic. The plastic portion of anaplastic is then represented by the fact that the ants are in a plastic container. And to remember lymphoma, of course, since the image is over on a green theme, we'll remember lymphoma since lymph things are normally represented in green. Okay, so these lymphomas classically have ALK gene mutations, and as in other videos, we'll remember this by the name of this bar here. It's important to remember that ALK negative cases do exist but are less common and are more aggressive. I think this is not too hard to remember, so I'm not going to use a prompt to remember that. Anaplastic large cell lymphoma frequently affects children and young adults. Take a look at the demographic of customers here. They're all conveniently young adults and possibly even children. Again, I do not condone this behavior. This lymphoma has a classic morphology. The cells are classically referred to as hallmark cells, and they have an eccentric horseshoe-shaped nucleus. You're right. This is represented by this convenient hallmark card someone left here with a horseshoe on the cover. The classic immunophenotype is positive for CD30, ALK, and EMA. I'm not going to represent ALK for obvious reasons. CD30, as in other videos, is represented by this cute little hedgehog here because CD30 is a classic immunostain for Hodgkin lymphoma, and Hodgkin sounds like hedgehog. But there's one more detail to remember. Just like Hodgkin lymphoma, the stain should stain in a membranous and Golgi pattern. To represent membranous, just look at the soccer net that he's contained in. The net on the soccer goal represents membranous since membranes are basically nets. The fact that this is a goal and is where goals are scored will help us remember Golgi since they sound similar. To represent EMA, again as in other videos, we have Hermione here. And we all know that her real name is Emma, and Emma is just like EMA. Okay, so ALK can stain in either nuclear, cytoplasmic, or both patterns. If ALK does stain with both, this correlates with the presence of a translocation between chromosomes 2 and 5. Let's talk about how this is represented. Chromosome 2 is represented by this shoe, and chromosome 5 is represented by this beehive. Shoe sounds like the number 2, and hive sounds like the number 5. The fact that these are hanging right next to the ALK sign here will help us remember that these are referring to ALK immunostaining patterns. Then, to represent cytoplasmic and nuclear patterns, a plasma gun is right next to the hive and shoe to help us remember cytoplasmic since plasma and cytoplasmic are similar. To represent nuclear, there is a nuclear button hanging here next to all of the items. Alright, we're going to reach the end here soon. As in other videos, the broken kiosk represents the fact that clonal T-cell receptor rearrangements are usually present. A kiosk is basically a receptor, right? And since it is broken, we'll remember clonal rearrangements. Lastly, DUSP22 gene, or DUSP22 gene, rearrangements are detected in about 1/3 of ALK negative cases. To remember this, we have a dust buster here. Dust sounds kind of like dusp. And since the dust buster is far away from the ALK sign, we'll remember that this applies to ALK negative cases.